Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country, with us. We missed him last week, and it was terrible. I was sad. It spilled over into our users, and then something happened that didn't happen in the Big Ten. But Kenneth is a big Alabama fan, and I told him that we would leave the first part of this segment open for him to have a therapy session. 1984 was the last time this happened, where Vanderbilt beat Alabama, and there's a lot of things that went on in 1984 that wouldn't happen today. It just, it's a long time ago, 40 years. So, Kenneth, how are your emotions almost a week later? How are we doing? Alabama taking a loss is nothing new, but losing to Vanderbilt is a special kind of bee sting.
Yeah, I mean, and by no means am I taking shots at these schools, but you're talking about Vandy lost this season to Alcorn, and always RIP to Steve McNair, Air McNair, and Georgia State. I mean, a close game to Missouri. So it's one of those things where you could see that Vandy may have been kind of, I hate to say this, building up to this. I really look at Alabama's defense. No turnovers, no sacks. I think when we're talking about Kalen DeBoer, that this is kind of one of those things we have to see how Alabama goes. I think offensively, particularly a lot of people, I think, thought that that doesn't know that what he can do with a mobile quarterback, because they looked at the fact of how Michael Penix Jr. hadn't been as mobile as he was while he was in the Big Ten in Indiana due to injuries. Thought perhaps with Jalen Miro that he wouldn't be able to get a lot out of Jalen Miro. But it hasn't really even been a problem. Jalen didn't have a turnover. Well, he had a pick, but it was a batted pick. So if you didn't watch the game, it looks like he threw a pick. It was a batted ball. The DB got it and took it to the house. Watching that game, I was sitting there with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Paul. And I'm like, at this point, Alabama's down to score. I'm like, cool, we can score. We could definitely get another score and a field goal if necessary or whatever. It took at least 6 minutes before Alabama got the ball back. At that point, Paul, I said, this game is over. Listen, Diego did his thing, the quarterback for Vandy. It's one of those reasons, and I wasn't here last week, so I won't even say I would have gloated over the Georgia victory, because if you watch that Georgia game, the first half, I'm sure there's a lot of Alabama fans with their chest out. And then the second half, we saw towards the end of the game, was a lot of Georgia fans with the test out. It was funny texting my friends. I was like, I was actually out, and I said I was going back home. I said it will be nothing for Georgia to come back in this game. It's just, if the first half it was like it's over, it'd be nothing. And the reason I'm bringing that victory up isn't to give props to Alabama. I want to point out the faults that Alabama's defense has been showing. And throughout the years, Nick Saban, we saw the adjustments he made offensively when things kind of initially he didn't necessarily want to do that, but of course he went along with it. But we always used to get the parts where usually defensively, don't give him a couple weeks, but defensively he would, be in the mad scientist he is, be able to pick it up.
So Kenneth, let's get into, after the sorrow and the pain of Alabama, all of that. Now we can get into what what business is for you, which is the Big Ten. The biggest one so far in the season is Saturday, Ohio State, Oregon. This is the reward for realignment. This is what we get as fans after all the craziness that had nothing to do with us and nobody asked us about it in Autzen Stadium. But Ohio State is so deep. We just talked to Evan Abrams from Action Network, and he kind of likes Oregon in this when it comes to making a bet. I just think Ohio State's the deepest team in the country, and it's going to be hard for Oregon to keep pace for 4 quarters. But I do know that Dan Lanning will kitchen sink this game and make it as hard as he can for the Buckeyes.
He better throw everything in the kitchen sink. I have to just piggyback what you said. I think this game for 3 quarters, even let's just say if it's lopsided initially, I think by the time we get to the third or fourth quarter, it's going to be tighter. But I think Ohio State's too deep. I think the addition of Chip Kelly and what he's doing with that running game fits with what they need to do to dominate, not just within the Big Ten, but in the playoffs. I think this is perhaps, depending on what Georgia kind of maybe does later on this season. I think this is Ohio State's year. I think this is Ryan Day's year. And I think Dan Lannon is a great coach, but I still don't know if they can go up against a powerhouse, a traditional Big Ten powerhouse, because that's what you have now with Ohio State, with the power of the run game, and of course their wide receiver. You got one of those schools that it's hard to take down, and I don't have Oregon beating Ohio State. And it's funny because earlier when we've had these segments, I know I've talked about a wait and see approach when it comes to Oregon, and we've seen that Oregon has rebounded and shown what we expected them to be as a national power, but I haven't seen enough to where I thought, like, man, they could give Ohio State a run for their money. So yeah, I have to go with Ohio State right now. What's the line? What's the betting line on that?
Hold on, let me tell you. I had it up just like 2 seconds ago, and then of course I moved away from it when I was talking to you. It's close. I think it was the look ahead was like -1. Yeah. So it wasn't. I think it might be 3 right now.
Okay.
The
like that.
line is Ohio State in 3. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine with me. I would probably take Ohio State in the 3. I wouldn't do it with my chest out, but I would probably take Ohio State and the 3, just at the 3. But Ohio State and the 3 is kind of how I would go. But it wouldn't surprise me if Ohio State wins by a touchdown or more. I don't expect a blowout, but it wouldn't surprise me if they win by a touchdown or more. I think there's still a couple of growing pains for Dan Lannon and Oregon entering the Big Ten. I don't mean like huge steps like we had to see with what SC is kind of going through, but I think there's still a little bit of growing with what goes down in the trenches when it comes to the Big Ten.
All right. Speaking of SC, let's get to them. They play Penn State. This is a game I think could get away from them if they are not maybe perfect, because Penn State, both these teams are improved from a year ago, but Penn State was a step ahead of them already. So I think that's where they live. You're the president of the Drew Aller fan club, and Andy Koldenicki has been a godsend for him. He doesn't make mistakes. They've unleashed his talents a lot more. And James Franklin, I think it'd be good for him to win a game over one of these jobs he's been constantly linked to since he got to Penn State. Like people, I don't understand why people think that somebody just wants to leave one of the places that they only care about college football and nothing else.
To your point, before we get into the game, I think because people didn't grow up with Joe Paterno and you had so much bad towards the end of it, that you forgot what he did there and why Penn State was Penn State. People that aren't our age don't remember them being independent like Notre Dame and all of the history with Penn State. To your point of why would you leave someplace, as you pointed out, that is feverish about football to a place where at times, depending on if you're winning or losing, they can be fickle. And also, James Franklin's been in a spot where he hasn't beat Michigan and Ohio State, and they've still kept him there. Why would you now, when there's a playoffs, do something like that? So and you already see with the type of stuff, the heat that Lincoln Riley can get up and down. And even with them having a better year at SC this season, there's still people that question Lincoln Riley, and I'm not saying that it's rightfully so. Being the president of the Drew Aller fan club, you know what? I'll say this. I think this may be another one of those games where Drew Aller's a better player than he was last year, but you can even see was last weekend's game. They'll take what, and I mean Penn State's offense will take what you give them. They won't always feel like they have to put foot to pedal, where we can win by double digits here, but we don't have to bludgeon you and try to create turnovers. So I could see this being a game where Penn State may win by a touchdown or more for me. Even though I think I looked at it earlier and it may have just been like 3.5. I can't remember, which to me was like, whoa, I definitely have Penn State winning by more than that. I think their defensive backfield is going to be pretty stout. I still some questions with Tom Allen and that defense coming over from Indiana and Manny Diaz going over to Duke. That defense doesn't look the same, but I can't hate on it because you look at the fact that they lost Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac on the front, and even though Abdul Carter's down there, it's still not the same heat that you had with him being a linebacker, and you had those two guys on the edge rush. So I definitely have Penn State winning. I still go to when we've seen that when you're going up against these fundamentally sound Big Ten schools like Penn State, it's going to be hard down low that offense. I got to see the type of pressure, even though I just dissed Penn State's defensive line. I got to see the type of pressure that they're able to generate against that offensive line against SC, and if they have Miller Moss running around like we've seen them against Michigan. So I got Penn State. I don't think it'll be. I think I got Penn State by a touchdown. Let me put mine on there. Boom. I got Penn State by a touchdown. I like what's going on at SC, but I think SC is a little above where we thought. I think they're definitely above where we thought they were at the beginning of the year. I don't think any of us thought they would have threats to be in every game to a degree. That offensively, and then defensively, and we've seen there have been some problems, but you still know coming over from UCLA, D'Anton Lynn has done a really good job with the pieces that they have over there. But I think it's going to just take a little bit longer to see what happens with SC. So I definitely have Penn State going out there and winning.
All right, let me ask you this. They're rolling along. Kurt Cignetti's done a fantastic job. Is Indiana for real?
Definition of for real, because
can they be 9-3?
Okay, you're talking about right now, and they got what 6 victories of. They got 6 wins. Man, that's a lot. Nebraska, I don't know if they can beat Nebraska, but I think there's a chance. Let me say that. I think there's a chance they can beat Nebraska. I don't know if they can beat Washington. They'll beat Michigan State. I don't know if they'll beat Michigan. They're definitely not beating Ohio State, and they'll beat Purdue. So, yeah, there's a chance they can get to that. They can get to 9-3. Look, if they beat the teams that they're expected to be, because there are some people that may take them over Nebraska, right? And there are some people, rightfully so, may take them over Washington. I think Washington is one of those programs that, regardless who the head coach is, there's a high floor with Washington's. So, like, a lot of people just expect them to fall. Washington has done this before. So even with Kellen DeBoer leaving, and they still have some of the remnants of that. Nebraska, I like what's going on with Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola up there. So I think my bias, I would lean towards Nebraska, but also with my bias, I haven't seen Indiana do anything like that. I was just talking about Tom Allen a minute ago, the defensive coordinator for Penn State, the former head coach of Indiana. You just haven't seen Indiana be able to pull this off in football, or even in basketball really recently, outside of the women's basketball team last year. But I definitely have them losing to Ohio State, and I think, and I have them losing to Michigan, but that could be a game that perhaps they can win. But I have them losing to Michigan. These are winnable games against Nebraska and Washington, even though I would say that I think they would have 8 wins is probably what I would say, but I'm biased because my natural belief isn't to believe in Indiana, and that's not fair. I'm not being fair to what that program is doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this is a fantastic week for college football nationally, and wanted to leave some time so we could talk about it. Kansas State and Colorado, I'm going to rapid fire these right at you. Kansas State and Colorado. Does Colorado beat a very well-coached Kansas State team who had a weird game a couple weeks ago, but can they contain the running game like they did against UCF?
I don't know if they can contain the running game. I'll say that, but I do think they may be able to score enough to perhaps beat Kansas. That Colorado team is hard to judge. And from just me coming on here, how big I am. We're talking about the trenches. And to me, that's one of the biggest issues on both sides of the ball. You just mentioned containing the run game. I'll take Colorado because I think Shedeur is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and Travis Hunter is probably easily the best player in the country. Offensively, I would like for them to do a lot more motion offensively, but still they can get it done. So I'll go with Colorado begrudgingly with that one.
Okay. Ole Miss, LSU.
Oh man, that's a good one right there. You know what? This is a hard one for me to pick right here. I'll take Ole Miss, and I know that Ole Miss, we expected more out of Ole Miss this year, and they've had a loss that was kind of like a head scratcher. It's hard for me to trust LSU at times. I know that recruiting wise, it's an excellent program, but it's really maybe every 8 years to a decade to where they kind of go on one of those runs, and I don't think they're in one of those runs right now. Coaching, I'm gonna go with Ole Miss, so I'm gonna take Ole Miss over LSU.
All right. Well, Garrett's an LSU fan. I can't wait till LSU and Bama play. We're gonna put you guys on.
Sorry,
It's on.
Sorry, Garrett.
All right, and finally, Red River, Texas OU. Texas getting 14.5 points in this game, this game always gets weird. I think Texas is going to win, but I have a hard time as someone who's, not personally either way, but as a person who lives in Texas, deeply invested in watching this game every single year. I've been to it a few times. It's such a cool place, but other than the stadium's a dump, but it's such a cool scene. The Cotton Bowl's a dump. It's a dump. If you go through there and you don't smell mold, you're in a really lucky spot. It's just so old. It's so old. Yeah. Dave,
with all that money.
Here's the thing.
It's
the city of Dallas, so it's all the city. They've improved it, sure.
Okay.
It's improved, but man, it's just the fair is
too
awesome.
much money in Dallas for that, Paul.
Yeah,
it's too much money in
Dallas. The fair is
Paul.
awesome. The fair is awesome. They spend all the money on corn dogs and deep fried Snickers. That's my thought. Yeah, Dallas is too much fun. The Cowboy Stadium, Jerry wanted it there at the Cotton Bowl site, and then the city probably did the right thing and said, we're not going to give you any money. And the city of Arlington is like, who wants money? You want money? We'll give you money. Come over here.
Right.
Build right next to the Rangers, And then the Rangers didn't need a new stadium. Yep. They're like, we'll give you more money anyway. Build another one. We don't care. Come on. Money. Here. Don't leave. So but how do you see this one going? Texas and Ohio State, to me, have looked the best of any two teams that have played, although neither of them have been truly tested just yet.
That part. You know what? When you say that last part with testing, I really want to see Arch Manning go up against a vaunted defense to really know.
It's going to be Quinn Ewers this week. So Quinn Ewers is back.
Oh, it is? Oh,
yeah, Quinn Ewers is back.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, sir? Oh, yeah. Oh. So listen, I'm definitely. I would take Texas either way. Let me say this, and this is my thing when it comes to Arch. Some of the hype can just be a tad bit overwhelming. And I think he's going to be a good quarterback, but some of the descriptions as far as the arm talent is kind of slow your roll there. Quinn Ewers on the flip side to me is like a Maserati. And I know this is going to probably piss some people off. A Maserati is like a really nice car, but when you take it off the lot, it has one of the worst depreciation rates of any expensive car that you get your hands on. And that's the only problem really with it. And I think Quinn Ewers has the arm talent. I think he has everything, but sometimes it's and I don't want to say he doesn't have it, but it's like brain glitches where I think he'll be one of those guys when he gets into the pros that will be a nice B tier quarterback at the top of the B tier at times. But I don't know if he could be a guy that can maintain A. And saying all of that, I think Texas is going to win by 14 in a rivalry game. I think that will be difficult, but I'll tell you this, you're closer than this than I am. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you, because and it's funny, last year, Georgia was this team where, and I know why, because I'm an Alabama fan, where when we're talking about the best teams, I would block out Georgia, and James will have to be and Georgia, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot, I don't know what. I do that with Texas this year, and it has nothing to do with disliking them. It has to do with Texas being one of those schools where, and I think they are back, but it's can they do it? And I'm with you. I think the only team outside, and I mentioned again, would be Georgia, but Texas could be that team that can rival Ohio State. I don't think Oklahoma has anything for them. I don't think it'd be 14, but I think it'd be double digits, to be honest with you, or at least close to 10-point victory by Texas. I think just Texas kind of has their stuff together this season.
Absolutely. All right, Kenneth, the Bears, that offensive line starting to play a little better.
Dude, let me tell you, this is the thing, and I think anybody watching this show will know this. You don't have to watch Bears football. I'm one of the coaches that I like a lot in the pros. He hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. I like Kyle Shanahan, right? And I like Kyle Shanahan because he makes running the football sexy. A lot of offensive-minded coaches believe they have to prove their brilliance through the air. The Bears, with their new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who came over from the Seattle Seahawks, I get that he was installing his system and he was running a lot of 11 with 3 wide receivers. But in doing that, the Bears, who brought over Keenan Allen this year in a trade, Keenan Allen was out. You had a small wide receiver in a scheme where sometimes these guys have to block it, and DeAndre Carter out there, where get your ass in 12 or 13, put 2 tight ends out there and run the rock. And saying that, one thing that the Bears, even when they had issues with their former offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, was with Justin Fields and them connecting and it translating on the field, they were one of the best running teams in the NFL the last 2 seasons. I understand you don't know this team, but one thing that offensive line could always do is run block. They brought in Shelton. Shelton is a smaller guy who can move out and get to the second level. I've been screaming for 4 weeks. Simplify the game. Why are you trying to put too much on Caleb? Caleb is supposed to grow into this. You don't have to. You didn't bring all this talent in here to force him to do things that he doesn't have to unless you're in that situation. I went to the game last week, and it was a well called game. But there were still times where it was like, stop being cute and run the rock. And people here were hard on DeAndre Swift and was calling that a failed contract. I wanted the Bears to bring him in. I knew they weren't going to bring in Saquon Barkley because of the amount of money. But the Bears are looking better because they're running the football. In football, is simple. It's really simple. I'm not saying that sometimes it can't get more complex or it doesn't need complexity, but if you consistently and physically run the football and you control the game clock, you're going to end up with W's more than L's.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Kenneth Davis, you can find him, Big Ten Country. What's the name of the Bears podcast again? I get it right. Under Center. So he's great. We love him. He's my new podcast best friend. Well, look, I see it down the road. You and I are just going to do one together. Let's just start making plans right now. Let's get some sponsors and do this thing, man. This is too much fun. Garrett's shaking his head.
I'm all for this. Y'all's chemistry is ridiculous.
Just let me know. We can control the North and the South.
That's right.
Together. All right.
We
shall combine them.
I love it. Let's do it. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. Kenneth, we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, that's Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country with us. Oh, Garrett, plans are in motion now.
Yes, sir.
That's it. Like, you can't. This is what it's like when they form the Avengers.
I can see that.
Honestly, like, this had to be what it's like when Iron Man and Captain America and the Hulk all got together. We're like, hey, this could be fun. I know in the movie there was a little bit of resistance, but that's just for dramatic effect. Yeah. I would think if you had a real-life Avengers, like most of the time you're like, hey, do you want to work with Iron Man? I'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
Yeah, sure I do. That we have a Hulk? Great. Who else can we get? Is there a hot girl who can, like, kill people? Yeah, okay, go bring her in.
We'll find her.
How about an archer? Do you have a guy who can shoot really cool arrows? Done. Norse god? Done. A guy who can crawl up walls? No problem. We've got a couple of those, Oh, my God. Yeah. So, okay. When we come back, let's talk Big 12 with our buddy Josh Neighbors. This is 365 Sports.